I have to say, I still don't understand why we wouldn't allow this economic growth to continue and feed on itself. It would trigger the kind of velocity of money that creates real shared prosperity. On that note, I want to bring in Lending Tree's, their chief economist, Kristin Tate, and also Young Americans for Liberty, their analyst, Kristin Tate. Kristin, let me start with you. Listen, I don't know, forget about politics for a moment. It just feels like the economy is starting to bubble up, that money is beginning to circulate, and people are starting to feel good. And I'm really concerned that when you start taxing people at $29,000, it's a major speed bump.
Yeah, so it's not clear to me exactly the totality of the tax plan, because the current standard deduction is $12,400 for 2020. So if they take it to $29,000, that actually means a lot more people will not be paying any taxes at all, which might help the economy. The challenge, of course, is that anybody above that ends up paying much more, and that, could be a drag on the economy. So
but
it's not clear to me exactly how the plan...
If we're doing $35,000 a year, can I really afford to pay 4% tax on the extra money I'm making?
Well, the first 29 would be free, so I guess you pay 4% on like the 5,000, which is less tax than you're paying now under the standard deduction of $12,400.
Kristin, what are your thoughts on this particular plan?
So I actually agree with part of Bernie's proposal here. Everyone should pay a little bit in taxes, including low-income people. Part of the problem right now, Charles, is that nearly half of Americans pay zero in federal income taxes. So they don't care if our federal government continues to spend our money like drunken sailors. If you add more people into the tax-paying population, they will take more of an interest in how our government is spending our money. And to be clear, I am not in favor of any tax increases. I would love to see the government downsize significantly and have tax cuts across the board, but many Republicans and virtually every Democrat has made it very clear they are not interested in any spending cuts. And you know what? I have to give Bernie some credit, because at least he is being honest with people when he tells Americans that healthcare is not free. That is a lot more honest than Liz Warren, who's running on basically stealing money from billionaires to pay for these big government programs, which is an overt lie.
Well, in addition to all of that, we do have the wealth taxes. We have them on the screen, the different wealth tax proposals from Sanders and Warren. Tonight, these wealth taxes, they start to kick in. Many folks are saying, you can reach too far when it comes to the billionaire class. And again, the repercussions won't necessarily be with them, but the kind of opportunities that their investments provide for lower income folks.
Yeah, and I think the big challenge with wealth taxes is how do you really structure it in a practical sense? There are several countries who have tried to do wealth taxes, and it's hard. Like, what is wealth, right? There's a lot of assets that people have that are not publicly traded, that are not in the markets every day, that are difficult to value. So that's something that they'll have to address from a technical perspective.
Kristin, it's interesting because, listen, these taxes, it's okay to say, okay, I want everyone to pay taxes, but the one thing about them is that they feel like they're insidious, right? And they continue to grow. Yeah. There's always something. When you open that door, when you open that tax door, for instance, with the alternative minimum tax, someone wrote an article, I think it was like 1967, 100 families not paying taxes, and then you fast forward 20 years later, and millions are paying the AMT. So I do worry about just the fact that the idea, instead of allowing growth in our economy, instead of allowing people to go out to Burlington Coat Factory, to Best Buy, to buy a new home, and let that kind of growth where money circulates in the economy, that big government wants to take it from people, and then they will be the ones who decide who gets it as redistribution.
You're exactly right. Government only grows, and you cannot propose these trillion-dollar programs and pretend like you're not going to raise taxes on the middle class. Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax would only raise about $2.75 trillion over the first decade. That's according to her own advisors. That wouldn't even cover 8% of the cost of Medicare for all. So when people making $30,000, $40,000 a year realize that they're going to be getting a federal tax bill to pay for these programs, I expect to see the support for a lot of these big government Democrats erode. But, at the end of the day, we have a big spending problem in this country, Charles. That's another part of this equation, and the Republicans have not been better on this either. So we need spending cuts.
Thought I would hear the phrase, only $2.75 trillion. Okay.
It's crazy.
Tonight, Kristin, thank you both very much. Appreciate it.